This is the One Piece Podcast, episode 426 for the week of Monday, July 4th, 2016, Independence Day. My name is Zach.
And my name is Ed.
And we are celebrating our Independence Day with a very special guest translator for One Piece and Weekly Shonen Jump, Stephen Paul. Hey, Stephen.
We're finally independent from Europe. That's how this works, right?
That is definitely how this works. We also have with us editorial writer for Anime News Network and the One Piece Podcast, and our anime recap host, Sam Leach, is with us. Hey, Sam.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Good. How's it going with you?
It's a week. It's a week.
How are you celebrating your 4th besides coming on the One Piece Podcast?
Homework.
Of course. I should have asked that to you, Stephen, also. But
yeah, just grilling.
We also have our merchandise reporter, Kelly, with us. Hey, Kelly.
Hi there, how are you?
How's it going?
Good, thanks.
How are you celebrating your 4th?
After this, I'm heading to a barbecue.
Nice. Barbecue time, indeed. Ed, are you doing that as well, or no? Something?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. So today we have our manga recap of chapter 831. Also on this episode, we have Eric Vale, the voice of Sanji for Funimation's One Piece on. We will not be doing a piece together this week since it is a holiday weekend, so we hope you guys enjoy that interview recorded at Anime Boston a couple months ago. But it's, you know, about the same information then as we have now, so it's pretty relevant. So we hope you enjoy that as well. We also have a double anime recap. Sam, which episodes are those for?
Let me check real quick. I should have the stuff memorized.
While he checks on that, I'll talk about what's on OnePiecePodcast.com this week, because there's been a lot of news coming out, mostly about One Piece Film Gold. But since we got Kelly here, he wrote an article about some cool merch coming out for the movie.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got another addition to the Figure Arts Zero Film Gold lineup. This is the foreannounced Rob Lucci figure, which is going to be available in October, I believe.
And that beard looks ridiculous.
It is the most epic beard I've seen on a figure in a long time.
It's 747 and 748, by the way. Just tossing that in there.
Thank you, Sam. I'm just ruining the flow here.
I do what I can.
So yeah, check out Kelly's review and article on that. I guess not a review; it's not out yet, right? And One Piece Film Gold is coming to a lot of countries, and I know we have a lot of international listeners, so I'm going to list the countries. We already knew it was coming to Japan, of course, Malaysia, Hong Kong, Taiwan, which I guess depends where you're from as to whether those are countries, but we're with you. Italy, Singapore, Abu Dhabi and the United Arab Emirates is where it will be having its world premiere. I think it's like next week. It's on the 13th. Germany, it just added a whole bunch of more theaters, as well as Austria. France was announced this week. Belgium was announced. Luxembourg, Switzerland, and Indonesia. So unless you're in the United States or Canada or the UK, I'm really happy to see it, you know, getting some really international representation. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on.
Did we talk about on the podcast itself? Did we talk about the expanded Shonen Jump countries announcement earlier too?
You're right, we didn't, and that's big news. It happened the day we released the last podcast. I think.
Right, I think that's why.
Yeah, it kind of slipped my mind there. Stephen, do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, so Sasaki announced on, I think it's just on Twitter, that the Shonen Jump magazine, Weekly Shonen Jump, has now expanded beyond, first it was, of course, just United States and Canada, and then we added a while back many of the, the Anglosphere. Yeah.
I remember them off the top of my head because I've written so many times. South Africa, New Zealand, Australia, Ireland, and the UK.
In the UK. And,
as it exists today.
And now they have added, let's see, I think it's India, Singapore, and the Philippines.
Yes, that's correct.
I believe. Yep, those are the 3 new ones. And I don't, I have no idea, honestly, what the what the pricing is like in those countries. But if it's anything like the American one, it's probably pretty cheap. I certainly hope so. But that's really exciting because I think that it's definitely starting to push beyond kind of what you might expect for an English language release. in terms of the rights coverage, and they mentioned that they are, they're pushing for more. So I'm sure they have other territories that they're angling for right now. So that is super cool. The the Shonen Jump initiative continues to expand.
And crazy enough, the One Piece anime is also premiering in sub-Saharan Africa this month. So we're really going worldwide. It's really cool to see. So hopefully we could get more of you guys on board with us here.
Rwanda and Burundi get to watch One Piece.
Yeah, it's great. It'll inspire
so awesome.
generations. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's just about it for the news. So I think let's get into our July 4th podcast.
Woo!
This is the manga recap for chapter 831, Adventure in the Mysterious Forest. We had fans asking, when's the adventure chapter? And here it is this week. Ed, what's going on the front page here?
It's the Decks of the World 500 Million Man arc, volume 21 on Ruskaina. It's the face of our beloved boss. And it's the animals that Luffy has named all of his attacks after. And Margaret, I believe, is showing them his new bounty poster. So, pretty cool. They're very happy. They're very happy.
I thought that was Rayleigh.
No,
I
saw
Margaret,
Rayleigh,
yeah.
didn't we?
Yeah, we just saw him last week, and it's Margaret's hair. That's how I can tell.
Okay.
Yeah, Ed remembers Margaret.
Yeah.
So do I, to be honest. Weren't we just talking about her last week? Anyway.
We were talking about our waifus.
Right.
Steve likes Margaret.
So Steve's
everyone likes Margaret.
She's pretty good. Yeah.
She is. She's good. I like how the alligator or crocodile, whichever this is sitting like on its what do you call it, like Indian style there.
He's sitting on his tail.
Yeah, I don't know what he's doing, but it's weird to see. These animals looked initially. These are all those same animals, I should say, from the time skip chapter. They were colored in and they looked fantastic, but they looked a lot more formidable than they do here.
They've kind of been
crying now.
They've kind of been corgified here. Like this lion, he just has these really short little stumpy legs.
I love it.
Yeah, any other thoughts here?
No? No.
It's pretty simple. There's something to really talk about there. Ed, why don't we start the chapter?
Sure, we start on the southwest coast of Whole Cake Island. The Straw Hats have arrived to the shore, and it gives Luffy chills of excitement every time. And Carrot doesn't really understand what's happening, but Channel 3 is opening on the ship. Luffy's like, there it is. The sharks emerge. And when you see Pedro and Brook are in it, and Pedro's like, what? A submarine? What is this? What is this? What does this mean? It's also Brook's first time riding it, but he seems to be adapting well.
Well, this isn't his first time on the submarine. I was a little confused when I read this earlier, because wasn't he on the submarine back in right after Fishman Island when they go to the Red Line? Remember when they were like looking underwater? I don't
remember who was in the.
I'm almost positive it was Brook, because I remember the transponder snail like doing something with his voice or something.
Brook's an old man. He forgets things.
I like that excuse. He is 90 and dead. He's also dead. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I guess that's Pedro who's begging Luffy's forgiveness. Or wait, yeah, he'll be a burden on Brook's mission. He's worried, but yeah, he'll be useful. Infiltration is his forte, and Carrot is really freaked out by the astral projection of Brook. Brook's soul has left his body and it's freaking her out. And he promises that he will bring back a poneglyph tracing, not the whole thing itself. Luffy's like, we're counting on you guys, and once we meet up with Sanji and Pudding, we'll wait for you here. They both have to be very careful. Do not forget Peckham's message, Pedro warns. So onward, head up the river, go into Big Mom's castle, and I hope they have the depth to travel that far. So they buzz off.
No, they blub off.
Yeah, they blub off.
I'm just thinking about like the logistics of doing a poneglyph tracing. Doesn't that mean like they need like
Big sheet of paper.
five gigantic
Pieces of
scrolls,
paper, yeah.
yes, of paper to get all of the sides, and those things are what, like at least like 8 to 10 feet to a side,
Yeah.
You
something
gotta
like that.
scrub the pencil across the whole thing.
Mm-hmm,
And I'm
exactly.
assuming there's nothing on the bottom.
Right.
Too
right.
bad they don't have a camera.
That's that's a great mystery. Like, oh wait, it turns out there's bottom sides on all the poneglyphs. Guys, we have to go back.
And then we turn the page, and we're back on land. We're here on Big Mom's Island, the Whole Cake Island, for the first time. Luffy smells adventure, and Nami's just asking, just please, no, let's not make this an adventure.
But the chapter said it.
And then we get a really cool group shot where Luffy's shouting, hey, Sanji, Pudding, here we are, like you said. I guess I just love group shots in One Piece in general. Like, I think Oda always stages them in a really interesting way. We got Luffy up front and Nami and Carrot behind him, and Chopper sort of standing by his side. And Nami continues, we're a bit late, though. Are you sure you saw them, Luffy? And Luffy insists that, yeah, I saw them. I saw them from the mast, but they were gone by the time we looked. And then I guess, is this Chopper and Carrot? They're telling Nami to taste the ground, that it's made of hard cream. And Nami says, you're right, it's meringue. I wonder if this island is all sweets too.
Yes, you're on Whole Cake Island. Jesus Christ.
And then either Chopper or Carrot are sort of freaking out about that. Like, what? I want to live here. And then Luffy's up on some hill here saying, I saw Sanji and Pudding right up here. When I looked back, they were gone. And Nami's checking out the map. Well, this is definitely the southwest coast, and I wouldn't lie about it, and you wouldn't lie about it. But I can't see a reason why they'd be there and then vanish. And then Luffy's just sort of surveying the island, and then he sees Sanji, it looks like, sort of leaning against a tree with this sort of blank face, blank expression on his face. And Luffy starts calling out, hey, Sanji, it's us. And Carrot and Nami are off to check it out. And Luffy is just continuing to call out to his crewmate.
I love that nonchalant pose from Sanji. It looks like he should be like flipping through his smartphone, like as he's waiting for his date or whatever. Just like,
And then we turn the page.
Kelly?
And we see Luffy leaping down and Nami looking and confused because she doesn't see anything and saying, what's going on? Sanji was just there. Why is he hiding? And they're all basically really confused at this point, going, where did he go? And it looks like they've lost sight of him, but it looks so tasty. It's a forest of sweets. And I think it's maybe Carrot or Chopper saying it smells so good. And Luffy is yelling, hey, Sanji, get out here. And Nami, of course, still hasn't seen anyone, and she's running to catch up. And she says, if all of three of you have seen him, it must have been him.
I love this panel. It's so Willy Wonka.
Yeah.
It so is, yeah.
There's so much Willy Wonka and Alice in Wonderland going on in this arc.
So much Alice in Wonderland.
Where
It
are the
really
Oompa
reminds me of
Loompas?
Through the Looking Glass.
That's true.
Yeah. And then Nami's going, why would he disappear? And we have a flashback to Zoe with, please believe me, I never meant to hide anything from you. And Nami speculates that perhaps he feels guilty about something. And of course, everyone is very gung-ho and wants to split up and go in different directions. Chopper looks like he's heading toward the smell of caramel, and we've got Carrot heading toward jelly beans, and Nami, the voice of reason, says, stop it right there. I'm sensing secondary disaster brewing.
And Luffy's going to the cake. But the whole island's cake. I'm not going to.
So fortunately, Nami is still the voice of reason here and is basically saying, fine, I'll search with you, but let's all stay together.
Yeah, so we go to the next page, and even the flowers are candy. We get it. Everything's candy. Everything's cake. Everything's edible. Nami is getting almost as annoyed as I am right now by the fact that they keep pointing out the obvious. So yeah, she says, "Don't you find it strange that you're in enemy territory and nothing's happening here?" And anyway, Chopper's still eating leaves and eating the river. This is literally Willy Wonka now. Anyway,
He's scooping the river out. It's from the melon bread, like the melon juice.
Mhm.
You know?
Yeah, he's doing. Chopper's going to do the Augustus Gloop here,
Yeah.
and get sucked into the pipe.
well, just as you say that, as Nami continues chastising, a giant crocodile rears its teeth from under the bridge.
No, a chocodile.
I don't think this one's a crocodile,
Yeah.
but maybe it is. Anyway, Chopper is taken out of his daze as he sees, and then Luffy says, "Cross the bridge." No, I'm gonna stay here and get eaten by the crocodile. So the crocodile, with a very nonchalant look, chomps the bridge in half. Carrot ready to fight. It looks like the rest of them just getting off the bridge, exclaiming, "It's a croc! How should we beat it?" And then Luffy, who, I mean, I don't know about the rest of you, were thinking, okay, he's gonna perhaps use a little hockey. Says, "No, we don't have to beat it up." But what happens with this crocodile, Stephen?
Well, the crocodile just looks at him and then promptly says, "Oh, no, just humans." So he's a talking crocodile, and we see he's got a little bowler hat and some suspenders on, rather dapper gentleman. And
We could call him Talkodile.
oh, I like that. The Talkodile. And Nami is stunned by this, and he just kind of turns and walks away. And Luffy is incensed by this. He's like, "What did you think you were chomping on?" And Nami smacks him because that's not the point. It's the point that it's a talking crocodile with clothes and a hat, and this is clear sign, if nothing else, that this forest is dangerous and weird. And in perhaps one of the most meta jokes yet in One Piece, Luffy's like, "What? A talking animal with clothes and a hat? I mean, like here," and he just kind of like turns and motions backward to Chopper and Carrot, talking animals wearing clothes and hats, and he's like, "What do you mean, you people?"
I love the faces with just the pupils.
Just the blank look.
There's a picture of Chopper in the anime where it was drawn really like weirdly, and it looks exactly like this, just with the two pupils. I'll find that out somewhere. But.
And Nami is like, "Oh, I mean, yeah, but no, but I mean, you know what I mean." And yeah, you guys are the good ones. She insists
animals are people too. Come on.
She insists that they should have taken Pudding at her word and just wait at the coast. This whole mystery Sanji debacle is getting worse by the moment. They've already lost their bridge back, and Luffy's like, "Oh, what's the big deal? You just jump over the river and you get back." And suddenly, Carrot is surprised. She's like, What? And we see that it looks like there are now two Luffys just kind of standing in the path. And we get these mirror panels where it's the same image but drawn mirrored.
I would have had a hard week, so
yeah.
I mean, this is really kind of nuts because I feel like Oda he's usually the kind of artist who goes out of his way not to copy paste.
Well, yes, but these are also fully drawn. They are not actually. Right. It's not like they took these and then copied them. If you look at the fine details, he did draw them.
They are second.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you could actually see there's differences in each.
Yeah,
because I was looking
lines.
at them and they looked like super similar. Like usually, I feel like I could tell if they.
If I were him, I would just do it. I would just copy paste it.
That's what all the other artists would do. Yeah.
This is Kubo's looking at him like, "Really? You're drawing it again?
You sucker!" And no, everyone is shocked that there's another Luffy, and they're even talking at the same time. Huh? Who are you? And so yeah, Luffy's not happy about this.
And the Luffy's continue to argue. He's like, what do you mean, who am I? I'm Luffy. Stop copying me. And Nami is freaking out. Which one's Luffy? They're moving and saying the same thing at the same time.
Draw an X on your head, and then we'll know who the real Luffy is.
Well, Luffy's already done that, actually. He has a big scar under his left eye, which Chopper notices. The scars and accessories are on the opposite sides. It's like a reflection in a mirror. The one on the other side is the Luffy we don't know. That's a tremendously unhelpful sentence, Chopper. But they know it's his scars under his left eye. So, but if that's the real Luffy, then who is the other guy? That's the real question. But Carrot, on the other hand, has spotted Sanji there, up in the tree, laying down all tranquilo. And again, Sanji is up in the tree, relaxing all lazy like. And they're asking, well, Sanji, what you doing up there? We came to get you. Where's
Wait.
Pudding? What?
Gotta mention the most important part here, Ed.
The lollipop?
Yeah.
It's for kids, Sanji. That's how you can tell he's the fake one.
I really hope Oda did that on purpose.
Yeah, you have to wonder.
Yeah. I'm sure he knew about what happened back then.
Well, I mean, I know that he had to approve the Funimation cast, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't
So
know if Oda
obviously-
did, but Toei did.
I think it sounded like that's what I've heard, but I don't know.
Oda may have. I wouldn't be that surprised if Oda said, "Yeah, this one's good.
Yeah.
This one's good."
Yeah,
So,
actually, just on that topic, Jason Thompson, who was the editor of Shonen Jump when they launched, I remember he pointed out on Twitter a few weeks ago that they got a note. I guess it was presumably a note from the author himself when they were started publishing One Piece that said, like, absolutely do not edit the cigarette for Sanji, because I guess he had more sway over that decision than with the anime, since that's all in Toei's camp. And so he had actually said, like, no, don't do that. Don't mess with the cigarette.
Miyazaki's no cuts all over again.
Exactly. Yeah.
but Luffy notices Sanji, and the two Luffy smack heads because they're doing the same thing at the same time. Get out of my way. Yeah, and then Chopper says, yeah, he ran off again. God, Sanji. Jerk. Luffy is. He does like they punch, like the Lucci and Luffy punch thing where they punch each other in the fist. And go to the next page.
Respect Knuckles.
And then we see Luffy falling back from the recoil of the punch. And Luffy's pointing it out to Chopper, go chase after Sanji. And Chopper's got it. And then Nami's shouting out to the crew, Chopper, Carrot, don't split up. There's something wrong with this forest. I have a feeling more is in store for us.
I've read this series before. I know that this kind of thing usually happens.
And then Luffy, not done with his mirror reflection, unleashes a gum Gatling. All the fists connect. They're both shouting, "Who the heck are you?" to each other, and they're just getting nowhere with each other. So it's just you think he'd figure it out by this point that just fighting himself is not gonna work out for
Or
him.
what was it? Perfectly symmetrical fighting doesn't solve anything.
Great. And then we get the other three, the Carrot, Chopper, and Nami, freaking out over something, and then we move on to the next panel where there's some man, I think, stuck in the ground. He's
That's
a giant
really
person.
good question. What gender this person is?
I mean,
that might be the least of the things to determine here. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
no reason to judge.
I'm not judging whatever the hell this thing is.
I don't know. You sound pretty judgmental.
Yeah.
It's not about this person's gender. It's everything else.
There's a huge person stuck in the ground, as they exclaim. He, she, it is.
No, we don't use it. It's not. We've learned
Got a
our
bow,
lesson.
got long hair, it's got a mustache, and it's shouting, "Whoa! You startled me!" But they're freaking out. Like, you startled us. Are you okay? Who did this to you? And the person responds like, "Huh?" It's like, "Well, you're buried in the ground." It's like, "I'm buried here because I like to be. This is what I want to do." And then Chopper's freaking out. "Are you some kind of numbskull? To think I was worried about you. I want juice." The person continues. Chopper's actually kind of fed up with this.
Mm.
So just shouting like, "I don't care that you want shoes." And then Nami's
This
trying
is
to
like
pull
an
him away.
old One Piece gag. I feel like
Mhm.
Nami's trying to pull him away. Stop trying to take this seriously, Chopper. It's only going to drive us crazy. And you get someone saying, "Wait, wait, wait."
Kelly.
So then we have the guy get buried in the ground, or the person buried in the ground, saying, "So, like, I really love apple juice." And there's like an apple juice fall to the left. I love that. And Nami's just like, "Ignore, ignore, ignore. Just look for Sanji. I feel like I'm stuck in a dream." And the person in the ground is saying, "You're searching for someone? They just passed through here. If you get me some apple juice, I might tell you which way." And suddenly Carrot detects something, and what looks like a rabbit riding a
Swan?
crane.
Crane, yes.
Crane. Suru,
Of
a
some
Suru.
form.
Or is it an ibis?
I think it looks like an ibis, comes out of nowhere and attacks, and Carrot's getting Nami out of the way, yelling, "Look out, Nami." And we get a great look at this really cool looking rabbit soldier, which I was definitely not expecting to see. Now, are these the same guys we saw earlier getting the food for the cake?
I think so. I think that's what this rabbit is.
He cuts those trees in half.
Mm-hmm.
Those living trees.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And he makes a sound effect, Tatum.
Good. I'm glad somebody noticed.
I know who's voicing this rabbit.
And then we have talking trees and crocodiles. That rabbit was just trying to kill us. We have to get to Luffy. I still know the way back. And Chopper's like, "But what about Sanji?" And Nami is saying, "We don't even know if that was the real Sanji. Do you think Sanji would just let all of this happen to us?" And suddenly they start to notice that the compass is spinning out of control, and time, which I'm not sure if any of them have watches, but I guess those are watches on the trees.
Yeah, you can see them in a few other
Yeah.
of the earlier panels.
There's some clocks on the trees, and they're saying everything is weird in this forest, and we get what we expected a little bit, probably, that it's dangerous, seeing these bones. And Whole Cake Island, southwest coast, the seducing woods. And everything in the woods is basically saying, "Did you hear? I did hear. Crowd closer." And we've got someone singing "Tree, Tree." Block
I'm
the
gonna guess
exit.
that was a tree.
I'm going to assume it's a tree, and I'm going to also assume that the one singing "Flower, Flower" is a flower.
I don't know. That's a big assumption there, Kelly.
I'm going to take a risk
Watch
with
it be
that one.
watch it be swip. Watch it be swap. all the trees are singing about flowers, and the flowers are singing.
Singing about trees.
Oh, this is just so confusing.
And we basically say, "Let's play with them. We'll play with them to death."
It's my
And we
favorite
have
way
our
to play.
do.
Flower, flower.
Sam will be singing the anime rendition of that song, with Kishidan doing the background. Anyway, that's chapter 831. I never start with Ed, so I'm gonna start with Ed. What did you think of this chapter?
This chapter was wacky as hell. It's great.
Maybe that's why I don't start with you. You're a little too succinct.
No. It's I'm curious. I'm disappointed that we're moving away from Pedro and Brooke story. So I think Pedro has the most sort of intrigue of this entire arc, because we know the least about him, and I'm
So
really,
does
really
Pedro.
curious. What's that?
So does Pedro, to be fair, though. Pedro and Brooke are, I think, the
Yes.
most intriguing of this arc.
Yeah, so I hope we get back to them pretty soon. But I am digging Luffy and crew's adventures in this weird ass place. Although this is sort of the getting to know you section of the island, and this is sort of our first impression of it. And it's really messing with the crew's minds. Like everything, like the people who live in the forest are kind of stupid, so that makes everyone kind of angry to have to deal with them. But also, like, they're very dangerous too. So I'm not sure how they're going to defeat it. They're going to defeat these people by being stupid?
I mean, Luffy
Maybe.
could.
Luffy could do it.
Yeah, I think he'd do a good job.
I feel like Luffy's done that before.
Thriller Bark. I think he did that a few times with the zombies.
I like that Dutch tilt, or the tilted angle where Sanji's laying in the thing up in the tree. It's just sort of it's very Batman when you do that.
Yeah.
Batman, like the Batman 66.
Right, Adam West, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But everything just wacky characters, wacky, ponytail and a bow in the hair with a mustache. And also this cool rabbit character, which I feel like they're probably going to be pretty important.
Stephen.
Oh boy. Yeah. I mean, I usually don't say this, but I think I was actively turned off by this chapter. Like I really did not like this chapter at all. And the reasons for me are pretty clear, which is now I've probably said, people who listen to this podcast for years have probably heard me say like a dozen times that in general sense, like my least favorite part of any arc is sort of like the low level fights. So the non-Luffy stuff where you're just sort of like waiting for him to kind of knock down these dominoes that he's set up. But in more specific terms, my least favorite stuff in One Piece throughout the entire series is like the sort of like Oda is just kind of messing with the characters. It's one of the reasons why I really don't like Little Garden, because that's kind of all that Little Garden is, with Mr. 3 and like all of the color stuff with Miss Golden Week, where it's just like sitting there watching, being helpless and watching Luffy get confused by stuff is one of the most frustrating things. And I feel like this was sort of like the reality slapping me in the face after having been so enthralled with all of the Whole Cake Island stuff, and having a really good arc in Zoe, and being super excited for this, and then it's just kind of like, oh, here's a bunch of random stuff, and you have no idea why it's happening, and it's just sort of repeating over and over. They keep seeing Sanji and then running, and Luffy keeps being confused by this reflection, and obviously it's by design. That's clearly what Oda is trying to do here, but I found it to be a very frustrating reading experience, and I'm kind of hoping that that he kind of builds it into something that doesn't feel quite as arbitrary, and maybe points to some sort of underpinning logic as to what's going on in this forest, because I don't know, I found it to be rather annoying to read.
Kelly.
Yeah, I tend to agree. It was a little frustrating, especially when you end the previous chapter with, look, there's someone on the shore, and I think maybe just my desire to have the story move forward a little bit, because I'm so curious about the whole Sanji pudding thing. But this really more and more is starting to remind me of Through the Looking Glass. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the part where Alice has to go through the woods to become a queen, and there's all that weird stuff that's happening. But between that and some of the soldiers that we've seen that look like chess pieces, this is really starting to remind me a lot of that. But I also hope that this chapter kind of maybe turns into something, maybe either something more about pudding, and maybe this was deliberate or not deliberate, etc. But it was a lot of things that are kind of stopping me from getting to the meat of the story, which is what I'm really kind of focused on, I think.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. When has Oda ever done that, though, in a big arc like this?
True.
Sam?
Yeah, I like the chapter just fine. I mean, like, I see what Stephen and Kelly are talking about for sure. But I guess this is the kind of stuff that I tend to have a lot of patience for. I do find it interesting, like, just how much Oda is pulling from like various sort of Western children's fantasy literature type stuff, and how much he's been doing that like a lot for the last few arcs. It feels like Dressrosa had a lot of that, and now this has got a lot of that. So it's just interesting to see that being sort of a common place for him to go to these days. For the most part, I feel like I kind of like that this chapter makes me feel like the arc overall might be decently small, or at least this part of the arc. Like, I don't think we'd be going through all this stuff if we weren't going to be out of the woods in like a few chapters. That's my gut.
You're pretty optimistic there.
I mean, I know it is One Piece, but
I mean, just for my thoughts. Oh, you have more? Go ahead, Sam.
no, I think that's it.
Fine, good. Now I get to go. I think I'll land somewhere in the middle of you guys. I think this chapter was disappointing, but it wasn't bad. Disappointing in that, we have next week off. Unfortunately, there's no chapter next week. And it kind of ends in okay. So the woods like killing people.
Not the most dramatic cliffhanger.
No, I mean,
everything else.
we've already known that everything in Big Mom's, queendom likes killing people, but we still don't. It's not a cliffhanger. Overall, though, I thought the antics were actually pretty funny. We haven't seen a doppelganger thing before, so I think that's kind of cool. I thought the stuff with Sanji was really interesting, and the fact that we first see him in that dating profile look. He doesn't have a cigarette there, and he doesn't have a cigarette when he's holding the lollipop. So there's I think that those are like interesting little clues. I think these kind of chapters, to address Steven's issue, are really annoying when you first read the series, but I think upon a reread, they're actually really fun because you could be like, oh, I know what all of this means now.
Right.
And that's probably what's going on in Oda's head, since he knows what happens next. So he's probably like, ooh, I'm so clever. I'm gonna put all this in here.
Yeah, that's how I usually read the manga or even watch the anime. It's just like, how do I think this is going to feel when it's in like a marathon?
Exactly. And so like this kind of chapter, for people listening to this episode of the podcast years later, it's probably would be a much more fun chapter or episode to read or watch. But today, as we're reading it, I totally get that frustration. I mean, we've done this, not even Little Garden. I think the beginning of Skypiea has a lot of similarities. The beginning of Thriller Bark, it feels almost identical to at times here.
True.
Yes, that's
Trees
probably
with faces.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I love the beginning of Thriller Bark.
Yeah.
And I like the beginning of Skypiea. I'm sure Sam likes it more than I do. But so I don't want to complain yet. We'll see if this lasts for another 10 chapters, yes, I will be very angry. But if we're out of the woods, literally, in the next chapter or two, that's fine. I think it's just the placement of this chapter that's kind of annoying because it's on the heels of a break.
That said, on the comparisons to Thriller Bark, like at the very least, Thriller Bark was like very, very funny during its early chapters.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
Which I don't think this is quite as funny, but
I thought this was funny. I don't think this was.
I think this is fine. Like I'm not. I think if we're like, I think Thriller Bark's sort of the gold standard of just sort of these just these antics that don't add up too much because the humor carries it so much.
I mean, I really like the Talkodile. Just as a design aspect. The lollipop Sanji, I think, as a more inside joke thing. And the apple juice giant, I'm gonna guess probably a relative of the Charlottes just because of the hair. I'm gonna actually use fan reasoning here. I don't think it's unreasonable. We are on Whole Cake Island, where Big Mom calls home. But I like the little chopper Nami gag. I think it's very One Piecey. Like it's a gag you wouldn't like if you had never read One Piece, but I kind of like it.
Yeah.
Part of it
Part of it too is just the particular crew makeup at this point is basically designed for it's like Oda just decided, okay, who would be the worst possible people to throw into this, and it's just Nami being totally helpless to stop these 3 adult children here from running off and getting lost.
Oh, there was one other thing I want to mention, and that's that we had to split the crew up again. It's been like 3 times. We're like in like the 3rd tier. So we had the Whole Cake Island crew, Peckham's leaves, and okay, now we're also Brooke and Pedro. And Brooke and Pedro were like the thing really motivating me here. A Carrot I like too. Don't get me wrong, Sam. Don't worry. But Pedro and Brooke are like, I'm excited to see what's going on there, and I'm afraid we're going to be leaving them for a little while here. That's all I got to say though.
Also, I just want to talk about the lollipop some more, just because I think that's probably the highlight of the chapter for me. Just like if we are assuming that it is a vague reference to the 4Kids version, I think it is amazing that Oda has an opinion on that version at all, and that and that he sort of
He has the correct opinion, it seems.
because I mean we're assuming that this is like the fake Sanji, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So the imagery of the fake Sanji is the lollipop from 4Kids.
Which means that maybe this fake Sanji had a whole fake backstory in a parallel universe, and that was the 4Kids series. And then you can appreciate that on a whole other level. Like,
Yeah,
whoa.
I don't know. I just assume that like
And he
Oda
sounds like this or whatever. No, that's not what he sounded like.
you just assume that Oda has just like a very limited interest in how the series is sort of portrayed in the West. You imagine he's just busy drawing to think about that stuff, but
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just seeing a little hint to that, I think is interesting. Assuming that's what the case is, which I
Yeah.
think is a safe bet. But
Go ahead, Kelly, please.
Oh, I was just going to say on the topic of Sanji, I guess the other thing that I keep wondering is if he actually went into the woods already, maybe to meet them at the coast, and that's why they were able to do a duplicate of him. Like, I don't know if you have to be in the woods for a copy of you to exist, or whether it's being created because they're thinking of him.
Or it might be one of the people. It might be that Rabbit is creating. Like, who knows what it is?
Yeah.
Oh, another thought that I had with fake Sanji is maybe this plays a role in Pudding's conversation with him where he turned her down. Like maybe that was a fake Sanji that was
Or fake Pudding.
yeah, because like I sort of
We've all been seduced by these woods now.
They're really seducing.
I've really sort of fallen into the belief that Pudding was lying about what Sanji said to her and whatnot. But I think an alternate explanation is that it could have been a fake Sanji.
So the manga's off next week. We're Stephen, you're going to be around with us though to talk volume 82, and we're also going to be talking maybe about Color Walk 7.
Yeah, I'll order them together. Hopefully, let's cross our fingers that they get here in time.
At the very
next
least,
week.
we'll talk about what's in there. So I'm very excited. I've seen some sneak previews as to what's going to be in there, and I think it's worth a
always fun.
purchase. Yeah, for people who don't speak Japanese like myself, I think that's the best thing to get imported because you really don't need to know Japanese. And Steven's going to be here to help you through it anyway. Because I don't
Better
think
than,
Color
like,
Walk 7 is going to be released here until at least 2056 at the rate we're going at the moment. What were we going to say yet? Sorry.
It's better. I was gonna say it's better than getting like a data book or something like that. Because
Well, that would be great for Steven and for us fans, but demand it from Viz. Come on, guys.
no, I'm talking about buying a Japanese one.
Oh, yeah, no,
the
don't get
color
that.
walks are the best thing to get.
Yes, that's true.
Exactly.
But I do want that in English.
Everyone
Anyway,
wants that.
let's move on to the anime recap.
This is a double anime recap for episode 747 and episode 748. I'm your host, Sam, and today with us we have our other host, Zach.
Hi, I'm your other host, Zach.
He hosts the rest of the show, if you didn't know. And we have Kelly.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, Kelly, how's it going?
Fine, thanks.
Yes, you guys ready to get onto these? It's a double anime recap, so we're doing the first two episodes of the Silver Mine arc.
Yep.
First, we have episode 747, The Silver Fortress, Luffy and Barto's Great Adventure. And the screenplay for this episode is Hitoshi Tanaka. Episode director and storyboard artist is Yoshihiro Ueda. And animation director is Atsuko Kawamura. I don't think I've seen that name before.
You pronounced it better than I could have.
I'm doing my best. Normally I would just sort of list off when the title card begins, but there's actually, before the title card, there's actually some canon material we got to get through. So the actual episode itself starts at as early as 3 minutes and 30 seconds, which is insane, but that's pretty much without any recap as far as I remember.
Filler always have less recap because they have all the time in the world. They could do whatever they need to do, and it'll be just as interesting.
So the Straw Hats and the Barto Club are hanging out on the ship. They're eating. Robin looks up and sees some storm clouds just before some enormous hail starts to fall. Everyone's in sort of panic mode, and hail is sort of hitting the deck and crashing. And Frankie's shouting, "Who's your navigator? We need directions." It turns out they don't have a navigator since they're a land-based gang originally. That it just never got around to having a person who's good with sea travel, which is insane because they're in the New World. If you think about all the troubles that even Nami has had navigating the Grand Line when they first arrived, just the fact that these guys waltzed in and got as far as they did is just insane. So they start calling someone that they call Grandma for advice, and Grandma tells them to wrap the hailstone in cloth and cool the gum to peel it off. And so apparently Grandma doesn't have advice for navigating a hailstorm, but they do have advice. She does have advice for using hail to peel off gum that has not been mentioned before in the story. So yeah, they follow her advice, and magically the gum peels right off, and it works. Her advice is pretty sound, but then the guy,
fantastic advice.
the guy just gets smacked in the head by a giant piece of hail, and then
and also that's not what they were trying to solve.
Right, and Usopp's just sort of freaking out, getting mad at them. And then Grandma's next advice is to apply some sugar to the lump that's grown on his head because of the hail. And I thought the subtitles were a little weird here, where Usopp says enough with the Martha Stewart crap. That was a weird translation choice, in my opinion.
In the scanlations.
I was trying to pretend that the subtitles did what the scans did.
Yeah, you scared me for a second. It's like, did I miss that? Did they actually just copy the scanlation?
No, Usopp is saying enough with the folk wisdom, basically.
I do really like Usopp's reaction though for all of this. How shocked that these guys are surviving in the New World with no navigator and what seems to be no skills whatsoever.
Zoro asks Bartolomeo why he doesn't just use a barrier to protect it, and he says it's because Grandma said it would be defying nature, which doesn't explain all the other times he uses his barrier. And we see that
Sam, it's okay.
and we see that even Law is panicking. Like, are these guys for real? They barely survive.
I completely forgot Law was okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. It's been a while since we thought about him. I guess. They barely survive the hailstorm. Nighttime comes. They're all just sort of hanging out and sleeping on the deck. We see some mysterious red-haired woman eating chocolate, and this is when the canon material ends and the filler starts, and we finally get our proper title card beginning at 6 minutes and 52 seconds.
You'd think I'd be excited seeing someone eat chocolate, but
yeah. We actually get a cool, fancy background with the title card where like coals and like heat expands and whatnot. So Luffy gets up, and I guess he has to pee, and so does Bartolomeo, and he's very happy about the fact that he shares a pee break with his hero Luffy. And then suddenly, just a giant flying piece of meat flies overboard, and
what would you do in this situation, Sam?
Basically, Luffy goes after the meat. It's a big trap set by the people who are waiting on the other side of the water. They remind me very much of like the Flying Fish Riders, where they got these like fish things that they've saddled up, and they can capture Luffy, and by extension they capture Bartolomeo, and the leader of this group of women gets her own little title card calling her the former leader of the Sweet Pirates from the East Blue, Desire. And Usopp and Frankie wake up.
Should be Desiree. I'm just gonna.
Is that how it's pronounced?
No, I don't know how it's pronounced.
I thought,
but it should be Desiree.
Spelt just desire.
But I mean, it's Japanese into English-ish. So
Usopp and Frankie have woken up, and they're trying to attack, and the enemies are firing cannonballs, and Zoro's slicing them up. But
and then it's Steve's favorite part of the episode.
Yeah, it's all goo, or as Steve said, it's cum. But anyway, they failed to get Luffy and Bartolomeo back, and this crew of women they escape back to something called the Silver Mine. The Silver Mine gets a fancy introduction from the narrator of the show. We see a man sort of hidden in the shadows, and he's eating coal. He's got sort of smoky breath, like 4Kids version of Smoker, and we see it cuts ahead, pretty far ahead, and we see that Bartolomeo is already working for them in the mine. He's been given a pickaxe, and he's got this sticky goo, sort of stuck his hands to the pickaxe, so he can't even cross his fingers to use the barrier. And Luffy is in some kind of jail cell, and he's stuck in some kind of metal ball. And they talk about, and Desire and her crew, sort of tease him and talk about how their leader Bill is a man with the smelt fruit, and that he's a man who is not to be feared. And then we cut to actually, before we cut to the scene, we see a scene where Desire is agreeing to feed Luffy some chocolate just because he's so hungry, and she figures they won't fill him up that much.
Didn't he say, "Oh, you're so sweet" or something?
He did,
something.
yeah.
And then she
felt
blushes.
out of character. It felt out of character.
Yeah, and then she blushes because apparently she blushes at everything.
Well, her name is Desire.
Right. And we introduce the man named Bill, not to be confused with Billy from Strong World.
I wonder if they're gonna kill him.
Or not to be confused with Axl Rose, because he looks exactly like Axl Rose.
It might be on
Steve
purpose.
had some fighting game character he was comparing him to. I can't remember who though.
Was it the toy animation filler extravaganza for the 3DS? That's not a thing.
Maybe, I don't know.
Sorry, I'm very
But anyway,
tired.
we're introducing Bill, who's being cheered on by a crowd. He announces that he's in charge of the Silver Pirates Alliance, and that's who we assume this group is for the most part. And this is when we get the new eye catchers. We see Luffy's new wanted poster sort of flooding in, like the old wanted posters from the first few seasons of One Piece.
Yeah, the Bartolomeo one's fantastic because it's his ship in the back.
Yeah. So I like that we're going to be getting, apparently we're going to be getting eye catchers for a lot of new characters, I assume.
I guess. I like how Bartolomeo is basically like, oh, I've been a fan of One Piece since way back. Do you remember when these eye catchers were around?
Yeah. And then back to the crowd of bad guys, and they're sort of showing off their bounty captures. They've been sort of picking off rival pirates from around the area, and they've got a guy with 60 million berries and a guy with 70 million berries. And this is when Desire and her crew rolls out Luffy, and she's like, hey guys, I got 500 million berries. And then Bill continues to sort of really not do a very good job at explaining what their motivations and what their goals are. Like, apparently they're picking off rivals and they want to be an unstoppable pirate group. That's about as specific as it gets. And he asks the crew what their dreams are, and they're like, get stronger, be a better pirate. And he says, we can do it. We can even beat the 4 emperors if we put our minds to it, which is, crazy talk. He explains his smelt powers, where he just creates his body. His body is basically just a furnace where he can melt stuff inside of it. He's basically literally the heat dude from the Ice Hunter filler arc, which means we've got like a million fire, magma, heat type guys in this series. And that's when Bartolomeo shows up to save the day. Apparently he knows Desire. Apparently they were part of the same sort of land gang who knew the woman named Gramba. And Bill pulls some swords out of his belly and gets in a fight and breaks Bartolomeo's axe. But Luffy rolls to safety, but eventually he just sort of runs out of energy and just lets himself roll downhill because he's not really able to do a whole lot other than have people push him around right now. And eventually Luffy and Bartolomeo, they make it outside the mines. This whole arc in general reminds me like a sort of like a combination of G8 and the Ice Hunter arc so far. This like the whole having an inside location and outside location feels very G8. But eventually they're being chased down by Desire and her crew again. And then for some reason a giant fissure just sort of explodes out of the ground. And Luffy and Bartolomeo and Desire as well all just sort of fall into the crack. And then we also get a Film Gold tease where that big-headed guy from Film Gold shows up, and they kind of sort of talk about I guess they're talking about Guild Tesoro from Film Gold, and Bill calls him the monster of the new world. And then we get the episode ends on a cliffhanger tease where they introduce the Wheelbarrow Man, who we are all so excited to meet.
I love that ending. It's like, oh my god. This guy
He's got
sucks.
hands that transform into wheels.
This guy just sucks so much.
The worst devil fruit ever.
Poor guy,
no.
though. I can't be mad. It's just, I'm sorry, guy.
There's also the jacket fruit, so there's kind of tough.
And that one's
competition.
canon. Yeah.
There's also tough competition for that title.
So what's the next
Sure.
episode?
The next episode is episode 748, An Underground Maze, Luffy versus the Tram Human, and that's most of what the episode is. This is going to be a much more brief recap, I think. The screenplay is by Hitoshi Tanaka, episode director and storyboard artist is Satoshi Ito, and animation director is Kenji Yokoyama. And the episode begins with Luffy freaking out after having lost Luffy in the sort of caves of this giant fissure that they've fallen into. He gets some of the gunk in his hair, and you imagine you'd have to shave his whole head if you know, it's like getting gum in your head, in your hair. He hears Luffy's voice and finds Luffy sort of stuck under the rubble. Desire's there too, and her fish boat is crashed and broken. They don't really pay attention to whether or not this is like a living fish who's about to die now that it's out of the water. But Luffy notices that there's tracks all around the cave, and he thinks this is very interesting. And this is when the quote unquote Avalon Express arrives, and he announces that he has the Roll fruit. And even Desire has never heard of him, even though they're supposedly on the same side. All Bartolomeo has to do is just push Luffy off of the track, and Avalon can't really reach him because Avalon's entire mobility is based around the tracks. Avalon's wheels turn into hands, and he starts pulling bombs out of the case on his back, and he just tosses them all over, and we see Bartolomeo and Desire, you know, running on Luffy's ball like cartoon characters, and escaping the bombs, and eventually sort of falling down one of the steeper tracks and just going headfirst down further into the hole. We cut back to a scene with Bill, and I noticed that he had a flag with his Jolly Roger has an S on it. So I'm, you know, sort of volunteering the theory that Bill is secretly Sabo this whole time.
I like it.
And we see Bartolomeo and Desire arguing, just sort of bickering with each other. It feels like Toei is trying to make people ship them. And Desire talks about having lost her pirate crew, and we see a scene where a ship one day just sort of showed up and blasted them out of the water, and Bill saves her from just floating on a plank. And it feels very obvious that maybe it was Bill who was running the ship that blew them out of the water. But eventually some just gruff, manly-looking miners show up, and that's when we get our eye catchers again, same eye catchers as last episode. We cut to a scene where Bartolomeo is dipping his hands into the hot water, trying to get the goo to sort of melt off. Desire is explaining to Luffy about how she and Bartolomeo both know Grandma. The miners can't break Luffy's ball, but apparently they are former members of the Silver Pirate Alliance who were abandoned by Bill. And Desire gets mad at the suggestion that Bill would ever do such a thing, but obviously she's probably a little wrong about that. And so Avalon arrives again, and he starts throwing bombs once again. Luffy rolls back onto the tracks somehow. He just sort of, just without anyone pushing him, he just sort of falls right back snug into the tracks. And this is when Avalon attacks the metal ball with a spear, being so sure that he's just
I
skewered
watched
Luffy.
this. I'm like, really? Oh my god!
I thought this was funny. I thought this was a funny way out of it, where Avalon was sure that he had hit Luffy, but sort of overestimated Luffy's size, and the spear just misses and instead cracks the ball, and Luffy escapes. Avalon pulls out a bunch of weapons from his case on the back that he carries on his back. He digs out a mallet, and Luffy just easily breaks the thing. We have just a giant confrontation where Avalon is just throwing bombs, and Luffy's punching the bombs back, and Avalon's trying to escape, but Luffy's chasing him through the mines. And eventually Bartolomeo creates a barrier that goes underneath the tracks and sort of guides Avalon to sort of flipping upside down. And then Luffy lands a jet bazooka, and Avalon just sort of goes bouncing around the cave. Again, like just in a very cartoony way, where he's just like boom, 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 just going around the cave walls. and eventually he's just defeated. He's exploded. He's all charred up for some reason. He's rolls out to the crowd, and his little Avalon Express tag on top of his crate turns into Terminal Station. And Bartolomeo is very happy that he got to fight in collaboration with Luffy for the first time. And that's how the episode ends. And that's
Cliffhanger.
that's all there is to say.
I mean, this filler isn't like outright offensive like some of the
Yeah, that's
more
what I
recent
feel.
filler.
Yeah,
It's just boring. I think
It
it's
is.
just
it's
very
pretty
boring.
it's pretty underwhelming so far.
Even hearing you talk about it, I'm like, all right.
Yeah, no, like I wrote all my notes out, and then as I'm going through my notes, I'm like, I could cut some of this stuff out. This is
Well, so could Toei,
right.
to be fair. And I think you cut out probably a lot of what Toei did. I don't even have like anything else. The eye catches look great. Avalon is ridiculous, and I feel sorry for him. That's all I got. Yeah.
He is pretty terrible. The one thing it's so sad that my favorite thing about both of these episodes are the Bluetooth transponder snails.
Yeah, those are cool.
Have we seen those before? Because
I don't
I
think so.
love
No,
those.
yeah, I think that's really clever. That's like something that popped out at me. Props to the anime team then, for that. But beyond that, and also seeing what's his name, Mr. Takata, the guy at the end, I forgot his name, the big guy with the big head.
Oh yeah, the from Film Gold. Yeah.
I mean, I love that design, and I was happy to hear his voice. I thought that was cool because I haven't really heard much from him beyond trailers, so that was cool. Yeah, other than that, unless I was really craving some extra One Piece, which I do a podcast about it, so I'm usually good with my One Piece intake. These were just kind of lackluster, which isn't bad for filler, and we need filler, so I'm not really complaining that much.
Right. Me and Jill need to get on that filler editorial.
Yeah, filler up. Come on.
Yeah, I think this is like the most it's almost like a stereotypical filler arc for One Piece. Like all the designs feel very much like a One Piece filler arc, and like I said, it felt like a sort of limp combination of G8 and the Ice Hunter arc so far.
I agree. The designs are, except for of course Avalon,
Yeah.
the designs are all kind of like okay.
Yeah, the regular dudes.
Yeah, they're
I don't know, I think
toy
Desire-
One Piece dudes.
I think Desire looks pretty cool, but Bill just screams One Piece filler character.
I always
Reminds
get
me of,
really, I get really scared when they like put canon characters into backstories.
Right.
That kind of stuff makes me nervous, but I guess it's cool. But whatever. Yeah.
Bill reminds me of just like the most generic like One Piece filler character. He reminds me of like Puzzle Phoenix, if you remember him from
Oh,
the Ice
yeah.
Hunter. I don't know why they feel like they're from the same like school of design.
Very much.
It's probably the same people.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Anyway,
It feels so similar. So
we have an interview from a couple months back that I'd like to give as a present for you guys. So enjoy this interview with Eric Vale, voice of Sanji, since this is the year of Sanji, and then we'll round off. You guys ready?
ready?
So we're here with the voice of Sanji, Eric Vale. Hey, Eric.
Hey,
How's it going?
good.
It's been a long time.
No, I just saw you a minute ago.
Oh, that's true.
I know, no, it's been a while.
So what have you been up to with, well, I guess in general, how are you doing?
Yeah, pretty good, man. Pretty
good.
good. Yeah. No, I haven't been to a con all year. This is my first con in 2016 because I've been directing a play back home called Noises Off. And if you know anything about theater, you know that Noises Off is one of the hardest plays to do as either an actor or a director. So I decided to push all the conventions off my plate and focus on directing that play. So that opened last weekend, and I figured at this point that actors are good and on their own, and they've got an assistant director and stage manager and crew to help them through the weekend, so I could take this weekend and go to a convention. So here I am.
Is that a record for you and how late in the year it is?
No, actually, I did the same thing last year, the exact same thing. I took the first few months of the year off to direct and star in a play called Bengal Tiger at the Baghdad Zoo, which is personally my favorite play, and it's that play I saw on Broadway a few years before, and it starred Robin Williams.
Oh.
And my son and I went to see that, and I fell in love with the show, and then my theater finally got the rights to do it, and so I said, all right, well, I won't do any plays for the first, or I won't do any cons for the first few months of the year, and I will just direct and star in the show, and we put it on, and then once we closed the show, then I went back on the con circuit, because doing a play is a pretty hefty endeavor.
I've heard.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I know in One Piece, which is I guess what we should talk about.
Well,
And we don't have to.
I suppose so.
I guess. The crew's been separated for a while. We talked with Sabatel a while ago, and he said he hadn't had the chance to, be in the booth that much as Zoro. I mean, I know he's also doing a million other things too, but have you had the chance to do much Sanji lately?
No.
Not at all?
I'm not for a little while, and in fact, I can't recall the last time that I was in the booth as Sanji. I want to say it was a few, like maybe 2 months ago or so, something like that, maybe longer. And honestly, I can't even remember when it was. But it gets confusing, and I can't. I can't obviously talk about too much because I don't know what I'm allowed to talk about and what I'm not allowed to talk about.
Well, you guys have up through the war, which is up to the time skip. I don't know if that puts anything in perspective to you.
I mean, it puts everything up to the time skip in perspective. but past that, I don't know. But the problem is I can't recall what's what. And part of that is because some of what we do at the studio is out of order. We're recording some things out of order because it is such a massive show. They, in some parts, have divided the duties amongst certain booths at the studio and different directors from time to time, based on director availability, because of directors' personal lives, such as people, children, people.
Yeah, I know
children,
Joel just had.
Having children, and I guess people want to.
Everyone having children.
People want to get married and have babies and
Very
stuff.
odd.
So stuff like that, and so that has caused people to have to rearrange schedules and stuff like that. So
you've been all over the place, basically.
yeah, so at some point I would get into the booth and they're like, so this is way after what we should be recording. So this is that. So somebody would take 60 seconds to fill me in with 30 something or more episodes of things that I haven't done yet. It gets a little confusing. So keeping it all straight in my head is difficult because I'm just not very smart.
Well, so Steve from our show asked, I don't know if you have done this yet, you probably have recorded this already, but Sanji in a dress, yay or nay? What's your opinion on that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. I eventually enjoyed it. And I think looked good.
I think quite well. Yeah. You pulled it off.
I did.
Yeah.
And I think he did very well.
Yes.
I think he did a good job.
I mean, when you're in the booth, do you actually go in there with the dress to get into the...
No, I just wear lingerie under my clothes. It would be
that makes sense, yeah.
inappropriate to walk in there in a dress.
If you say so.
Well, I mean, there sometimes are people who would frown upon that. I am in Texas.
That's it. I forgot. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's true. I'm in New York. It's very
It's
common.
totally different in
Yeah,
New York. Yeah.
everyone's walking around in dresses.
Right.
And so I don't know if you've heard, do you care about being spoiled about any Sanji happenings in the future?
No.
I didn't think so.
No, because because again, there's no spoiling when you come into the booth and they're like, okay, we're jumping ahead 30 episodes and here's what's happening now.
And now we're 5 years later.
Okay. No, no, I don't care.
This year currently is the year of Sanji. He's kind of getting his rectification story. I don't know what you call it.
Yeah, his backstory. Like
Yeah.
We're finally
real
hearing
backstory.
Sanji's backstory.
Right, and somebody told me they explain what his last name is and that he has a brother.
He has two brothers,
He
but
has
we haven't
two-
seen them yet.
We
don't know
haven't
anything
seen them,
about
but they're okay. So brothers, and yeah, I've heard some stuff about that, but
I think the joke there is Ichi-ni-san.
Yes.
So Sanji, him being the third
Sanji
brother.
can be written as third son in Japanese.
right, and his brothers' names. That's it, and his brothers' names are first son.
We don't know yet.
Second
That's
son,
the guess.
third son, and that's the guess, but nobody knows that for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, do you, from what you've done, dresses included, do you think Sanji needs a little redemption, or do you think he's still, from the character you started playing, Sanji,
Yeah.
back in 2006-07, whenever you guys started, do you like the direction he's gone?
Yeah, I mean, I've always thought Sanji was a great character. Do I think he needs redemption? I mean, not really.
All right.
I don't think that. It's not like he's been treated poorly. I mean, the worst thing that happened to him is he got dropped on an island with a bunch of dudes dressed in drag that treated him like a king. Right?
He doesn't know how to take that kind of
Right.
affection.
And I'm
Emotion.
like, redemption for that? I mean, I don't know about that. I think the guy's not been treated poorly,
No.
so I don't know why he needs a whole year dedicated to him, but I'm not going to say no to it.
You'll get to it when you dub it in 2053, something around there.
Yeah, right. Yeah, whenever it happens.
Although when we started this back in 2009, I think we were saying like 10 years from now, what'll you be up to?
Yeah.
And you're finally up to the stuff we started when we were talking. You were reading at that point.
Right. And that when we had that first conversation, where were we?
With it was in Toricon with Sabit and Monica Rial and that coffee.
In that coffee shop.
Yeah.
Right. And I had a coffee called Liquid Cocaine.
Yes.
Right. And it was.
Good
It was.
memory. I couldn't.
Yeah, I remember that because I'm like, liquid cocaine. What? Like, how would you serve something called that in a coffee shop that
It's
is
Rochester, who knows?
on a college campus? And then I drank it, and sure enough, wow, it was like drinking liquid cocaine. It was basically coffee, and I think all of the espresso that the coffee shop had poured into the coffee. So, yeah, I remember I started sweating, and my sweat was the color of coffee. Yeah, it was pretty intense.
At least it's not false advertising.
No, they were 100% right. Yeah, it was an intense buzz. Yeah, it's a lot of tinnitus going on in my ears after that.
Since then, have you done any joint interviews with Sabit, or do you?
I did what joint interviews with Sabbath?
Or do you refuse?
I did a joint interview with Sabbath that anybody can see online.
Oh, my favorite thing ever. I know exactly what.
You know the one I'm talking about, where I stole an interview basically, and I hijacked an interview when we were at AlmaCon in Alma, Michigan, and you can find that online someplace. I don't
Yeah.
exactly know where, and I forget who was interviewing us. Or
It was the two of you, and from what I heard from Sabit is that they walked out but left the questions.
yeah, there was a group of who was in it? Was it?
No, it wasn't us.
No, it wasn't you guys. Because I have a bad memory today. But there's a group of guys who were super cool. I'm forgetting the
that
group
was
right
us.
now, so apologize, guys, if you're listening to this. But there's a group of guys who were super cool, and we were hanging out with them, and they were nice, and they were interviewing Chris in the place that we were staying. And one dude who had interviewed me earlier that day had 7 questions. I had answered those questions. It was no problem. I went on with my day. And then when I walked into the house, Chris was sitting here, and those guys were about to interview Chris with those 7 questions because the guy handed these dudes who had just finished their interview his 7 questions. And he said, hey, guys, I'm not going to have the time to ask Chris these questions. So would you mind just interviewing him for me? Thanks, later. And just bailed on his own interview with Chris, handing off his 7 questions. And I yanked it out of their hand and I said, roll the camera. And I sat down and Sabin and I did the most awkward interview ever. And it's hilarious, I think.
It's probably one of the funniest things I've seen. I'll say that hands down. That and your commentary on the One Piece track during Thriller Bark. I don't know if you remember that.
Oh, when Chris and I trashed Ian Sinclair. Yeah, we spent 22 minutes talking about what a terrible actor Ian Sinclair is. But Ian is a dear friend of ours, so it's just us.
It's just his acting.
It's just what you do to your friends.
Yeah. I think that's all the time we have. Unless there's anything else you want to say, Eric?
No.
Okay, I guess we're done. Let's go.
All right. Well, thank you guys for having me.
Thank you, Eric.
All right, take care.
This has been the One Piece Podcast, episode 426 for July 4th, 2016. Thank you all for coming on this holiday weekend. And once again, I hope everyone is or has had fun at Anime Expo in Los Angeles this weekend. We're really sorry we couldn't go to that, but
A couple of people were there.
sounds like a
Allison.
fun convention. Yeah. Jill, Allison, and Steve were there. I think a lot of our friends at Viz and Crunchyroll and Funimation were there as well. So, and Toy, I know, had their Film Gold booth. And anyway, so I think that's just about that. Remember, I don't think there's anything else coming out this week besides Volume 82 and Color Walk 7, which we'll be talking about next week. So, Sam, where could people find you?
They can find me on Twitter at Lucky Chainsaw. They can find me on the One Piece Contest, hosting the anime recap every week. And they can find me on animesnewsnetwork.com, doing daily streaming reviews for One Piece and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Diamond is Unbreakable.
Kelly.
They can find me on Twitter at Karuri.
Nice and simple. Steven.
You can follow me on the Twitter at Translatosaurus.
Oh, we have like the succinct group on today. Ed, where could the good people follow us?
Zach, you are Zach_Logan on Twitter. I am Edward E. Festizio. The podcast can be found at OnePiecePodcast.com, Twitter.com, YouTube.com, and Facebook.com/OnePiecePodcast. OnePiecePodcast.tumblr.com for news updates and funny pictures. OnePiecePodcast@gmail.com is our email address. OnePiecePodcast is our Skype name. You can subscribe on SoundCloud. You can subscribe on Google Play. Don't forget to send us some piece together on our subreddit, reddit.com/r/OnePiecePodcast. You can also subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes or call us on our phone number. Zach?
That phone number is 347-497-MAJI. That phone number again is 347-497-6254. Call anytime.
Call anytime.
With your questions, your comments, your theories. Thank you, Ed, for being the only one who did that along with me. Again, we'll be back. Volume 82, Color Walk 7, next week. Don't fret because the manga's off. Because I guess, by Steven's opinion, the Volume 82 material is probably significantly more interesting. I'm hoping next week's manga, is...
2 weeks.
Just stop rubbing the salt in the wound. I hope it's a little more compelling on that front. So we'll be back with that, anime recap, all that good stuff. But until then, my name is Zach.
My name is Ed.
We'll see you next week, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. See you.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Friend.